Hey, welcome back into Theo's Coffee Break podcast for the fourth installment of this How to Transform Your Life series, inspired by the crests from Digimon. In today's crest, we will be talking about the Crest of Friendship, and I will be introducing you to my friends, Matt and Gabumon. Wow, this was actually a really tough episode to write, and I have a couple pages of outline notes of what I would like to go over from the lessons that I've learned in my own life, and also some really great reminders and lessons from Matt and Gabumon in Digimon. So I would really encourage you to come on over and join us for today's coffee break, as I would like to kind of share my failures. So, and the lessons that I learned from them, from being a bad friend. This is going to be really hard for me to talk about, but I want to address this in full and give it the proper attention. I would also, and I'm also going to be talking about authenticity in conversation and how we show up for ourselves and for the world around us, and how important that is, so that we're no longer putting on a performance for our friends, our family, at our job, all those things. And the last thing about friendship I want to talk about is the pressures that we put on each other. If you were a friend from my past, you knew I was pretty critical at times. Yeah, and just because I was right didn't mean I really needed to go as hard as I did. And I was really hard on my friends. But that was coming from a place that there was good intentions, but now I'm learning the importance of boundaries and also knowing my place, and that the sacrifices that we make for ourselves and others to be able to grow together and not burn bridges. So come on over for this week's conversation as we talk about friendship, and I cannot wait to introduce you to Matt and Gabumon, as they are probably my most favorite characters in the show. All right, I'll see you there. And yes, in this title, there'll be some friendship in there. Okay, see you there. Bye. All right, I'm turning off the light, and I'm turning off the phone, and I'm coming over onto you to talk about friendship. Wow. Yeah, I feel like that I've been starting off these episodes with the same kind of energy of just being like, wow, yeah. Because, I've said this before, and I'm going to say this again, is that the moment that you think that you know it all right, the moment that you think that you learned it all and you have it all figured out, life will come in the most mysterious and interesting way to remind you that no, there is actually more here for you to learn. And so I want to start off this conversation by addressing the elephant in the room before I bring Matt and Gabumon in for the conversation. Be your own friend first, so you can be a good friend to others. So in the last episode about the crest of love, towards the end, I said that if you're unhappy when you're single, you're going to be unhappy when you're in a relationship. And I kind of want to dive in a little bit deeper there to help us understand where I'm coming from when I'm talking about that. In the past, I lacked a lot of self-awareness, and I was not willing to listen to what other people were saying or what other people were observing about me. And I now see the sacrifices that people made to be my friend or to just be in my life because they could see how hurt I was. And for others, they could have seen how much I was hurting and how alone I felt. And I also used to be a person that overshared quite a bit. And I didn't realize that I was trauma dumping. And I didn't realize how much of a burden I really was. Now, on the other hand, I do believe that it's a two-way street. You know, it takes two to tango. It always takes two, right? When it comes to conflict, there has to be at least two people involved. And so, as much as it was my fault, I do see how there were things that manifested or things that happened in what other people did behind my back or talked about behind my back when they should have been addressing it with me. But that just creates a vicious cycle. And I'm here to break the cycle. I'm not here to continue the conversation or continue the conflict. And so, in that, I want to just address a little bit about what it means to surrender and how it isn't you waving the white flag. All right, because I think a truce is just putting a Band-Aid on an issue that does need to be resolved in full. And so, for me, the reasons why I wasn't willing to surrender when it came to conflicts or fights or arguments was because I wasn't willing to I was certain. It was coming from a place of certainty, but now I see that my certainty was coming from a place of confusion. And again, the chip on my shoulder. That darn chip on my shoulder, man. Oh, man. Oh, man. Oh, man. And now I realize that certainty, and from the place it was coming from, the confusion, it was coming from a place of control because I felt like I lost control of myself. For a good majority of my life until, as of right now, it's hitting me. The has hit the fan. Gosh, where was I going with that? It was like right there, and then it just went right out of my head. I do want to wrap up that thought, though, is that it needs to be resolved somehow, okay? And it requires a level of detachment and knowing that I may not be able to control everything, and that's okay. But I need to trust my own decisions. And I'm finally at a place in my life where I trust my voice again. And I know that the things that I'm saying are coming from a very authentic and real place. What you hear is what you get in this podcast. This is who I am. I'm not putting on a show for anybody. I want to help heal. I want to remove the stagnation. And I want to also, and my goal here is to really help shed some light on a lot of the fears and insecurities and confusion that we may be harboring within ourselves around our mindsets and around our own identities, so that we can, again, I'm going to say this one more time, so we can be a better friend to ourselves. And we do that so we can be a good friend to others. Okay? Because friendship is a two-way street. Yes. But when we say that, we're not weaponizing it. And I see a lot of people saying, when people say it's a two-way street, it takes two to tango. It takes two. They're weaponizing it. Because they want to put all of the blame on the other person without recognizing their part in that. I would know that because I did that. I said that. And I hurt people. I did hurt people when I said that it's a two-way street. And now, after many years and many failed friendships and failures of my own, I see how my part in it was just important as theirs. Okay, we don't say that friendship is a two-way street. We don't say that a relationship is a two-way street just to weaponize it, to get leverage in a connection. We don't do that. We do that to recognize that sometimes there are things we don't want to do, but we do them to help each other, to protect the connection, to help the bond grow stronger, so that we can challenge each other without rivalry. I'm going to say that one more time. Challenge each other without rivalry, so we can help each other become better versions of ourselves. And so my intentions in the past, when I said these things, was because I could see that the person in front of me, all of the potential that they had. I could see that how they were showing up in their lives right now, they were holding themselves back or hindering themselves with bad habits or limited mindsets that were operating from a place of survival and not recognizing how strong and capable that they already were. So, but we all make mistakes. We all do. And that's why the checklists, the boxes and checking them off doesn't always work. Sometimes we need to reframe it. We need to reframe the connection. We need to reframe the friendship so that we can meet them where they're at. And, boundaries are not meant to be weapons either. Boundaries are communicated so we can still be in each other's lives without making someone feel like they're a doormat or burning somebody out. Okay? So something else that I've said in the past, and then I'll move on to bring Matt and Gabumon in here, is that when we tell the truth, the intentions shouldn't be to punish anybody. Okay? So when we tell the truth, we have to tell it in full. We must take ownership over our part. We must take accountability. And we must present and show up with changed behavior. We can't keep doing the same things over and over and over and expecting a different outcome. Because not only are you driving the people that you love or the people that you work with crazy, you're going to drive yourself crazy. And we don't want that. We want everyone to heal. We want everyone to be able to move forward with confidence. And that's why friendship is so important. Good friendship, healthy friendship, friends who are able to coexist with their differences without judging each other, without criticizing each other. Because then we can hold each other accountable and grow together and become better people. what was that in Wicked, the song For Good? I was changed for the better uh because of you. Okay. So, and it was very obvious. Glinda and Elphaba are very different. But gosh, their friendship was so beautiful. Had it definitely had its struggles, definitely had its ups and downs, and when they first met each other, they loathed each other. But how it ended, just because they left each other's lives, didn't mean that they stopped being friends, because they were changed for the better because of for good. They were changed for the better for good because of each other. Okay. Anywho, oh yeah, so before we get into, so just to wrap that up, hard conversations. Gosh, yeah, these kind of conversations are hard to have. There will be moments where we have to let our friends know how we feel. This may feel like confrontation, but these conversations are so important. So let your friends know what you're thinking, because no one's a mind reader. Okay? Nobody's a mind reader. Not even me. And for a long time, I thought that I was. I thought that I was a mind reader. To some degree, I think I'm a little bit psychic. There have been some things I predicted, or many things I predicted that have come true, but that wasn't coming from a place of trying to control. That was coming from a place of like, oh my gosh, everyone needs to know this because, things are about to happen. Oh my gosh, I don't want these things to happen. I'm trying to prevent it. But when it comes to just, everyday people and lives and friendships and family and lovers and all that, nobody's a mind reader. Okay. So we need to learn how to communicate. And when we're communicating, when we are trying to get some progress in some kind of conflict or disagreement, do not use your words as weapons. Okay. A sharp tongue burns bridges. So be careful. Be careful. Your words are very powerful. Everybody's words. Okay. Not just mine, not just yours, everybody. Everybody's words are powerful. And if you're weaponizing those words, I'm not surprised if you don't have many friends. Okay. Anyways, so, all right, let's bring Matt and Gabumon into the conversation. Oh my gosh, yes, rewatching Digimon. So for me, when I first watched Digimon, I really related to Tai, okay, and the Crest of Courage. I really did. And now here in my 30s, at 33 years old, I see that I'm actually a lot more like Matt. And the funny thing was that Matt and Tai fought a lot. Oh my gosh, they were always at each other's throats. And it was just like, it's like their friends were so scared sometimes because the fight would just happen out of nowhere. And everyone wanted them to stop. And they would just be screaming at each other. They would throw tantrums. They would stomp away. And it caused a lot of unnecessary conflict in the group. And again, like I said in the other episode, the previous episode, when these kids receive these crests, they go through a serious identity crisis because they don't understand. Well, some of them don't understand why they received their crest. So for Izzy, his made a lot of sense, knowledge. And once he learned that, curiosity was important because answers aren't always the solution. Answers can help you create a blended and more creative and innovative solution. It sat right with him. It aligned with him. He was like, yeah, this is all me, man. Like, I love that. Okay, but Sora and Matt, they really struggled. Okay, and Tai, to some degree, gosh, he had a lot of a lot of conflict with his crest at times. At times, it was like, yes, he was like, courage, courage, like, this is all me. But there was a time when he broke his crest. It literally broke. And it was because, he had that lesson to learn. But we're talking about Matt. So Matt, Matt's history, he is TK, or Takado's older brother. And growing up, their parents went through a divorce, and it was pretty messy. The divorce was really messy, and I believe it was joint custody over the kids. So, and he felt really burdened because his parents didn't show up for him and TK in a lot of ways. They were very self-absorbed with the conflict in their marriage and in the divorce, and they were fighting a lot. And it was just not a peaceful home for them. They were also moving around a lot, okay? And there was times that they fell on hard times where they didn't have much money, like much less like food in the fridge at times. And there were times when Matt and TK weren't able to be together. So like, I think, what was it? For one school year, Matt would be with his dad. Another school year, Matt would be with his mom. And at some point, there was a fight where it was like Matt was going to be only with his dad. He can't keep doing this back and forth stuff. If I remember that right. But the long story short here is that he was a loner, okay? And he didn't want to make friends because he felt scared that he was going to lose them because of what was going on at home. And so his responsibility was his little brother and TK, and making sure that TK was taken care of. But at times, like, he would get really annoyed with TK, and would just be so frustrated with TK. And it was just a lot for him. So when he got the Crest of Friendship, it really, really made him mad. Because he was like, this is stupid. This is stupid. I don't have any friends. I don't want any friends. I don't need anybody. Everybody just needs to stay away. If they know what's good for them, they'll stay away from me because I'm nothing but trouble. And nobody will ever understand what I'm going through. And so for like a good portion of that season, it was a lot of fighting because there was a lot of fear. I mean, these kids had the weight of the world on their shoulders. They not only had to preserve and save the digital world, they had to protect the real world, because at this point, things were manifesting on Earth. There were earthquakes happening. There were severe, out of nowhere, extreme weather events. At times, technology would shut down. Airplanes would just fall out of the sky because they lost control of, or like the airplane stuff would shut down. So then the pilots wouldn't be able to control the airplane anymore. Sound a little familiar, by the way? And the political leaders and the world leaders here on Earth were really confused by what was happening because they didn't understand. They couldn't understand it. They didn't know what was going on. And it was only the kids who knew that what was happening on Earth was because of what the Dark Masters were doing in the digital world. And so the pressure was on that these kids needed to figure it out. And they were not strong enough. And they knew that. And they were lost. There was no map, by the way. They didn't have a map. Their Digimon were just there to support them and protect them. But they didn't know what to do either. So everybody's hands were up in the air a lot. And the time was running out. Time was running out. They were on a clock. And it was a ticking time bomb. And so Matt didn't open up to the group about this. He opened up to Gabumon because Gabumon was really concerned about Matt. And Gabumon was so confused because he was like, you have all of these, you have Sora, you have Mimi, you have Joe, you have Tai, you have TK, you have Kari, you have Izzy, you have me, you have me. And Gabumon's like, am I not your friend? And Matt was just like, but that's different. You have to be my friend. And that really hurt Gabumon's feelings. Because Gabumon's like, actually, I don't have to be your friend. Just because that we're meant, just because you're the Digidestined and I was picked to be your partner doesn't mean that I have to be here. And so then Gabumon walked away to let Matt be alone with his harmonica as he just sat in his anger and his rage and his confusion. And so this led, so I'm kind of skipping over some parts because I would really encourage you to watch it if you're into anime. If you're not, that's okay. Then, this is all you need to know for the episode to get the message across. Matt, Sora, and Tai fell into like an event. So like if you're thinking of a video game, something just appeared and they felt drawn to it, like a side quest, so to speak. And it was the Cave of Sorrow, but they didn't realize that's what it was. They thought that maybe there were answers there. Maybe there was some information, or I think they all had their crests at that time. But anyways, they went in there to go see if there was something that they didn't find anything before because that cave wasn't there before. So where they were staying, there wasn't a cave. And then I think they woke up the next day and then there was a cave. This was meant for them, for only these three, because they really struggled with their identities surrounding their crests. All right. Sora felt very unlovable. Okay. She felt very unlovable and she didn't understand why. Why couldn't she feel loved? She thought that there was something wrong with her. She felt numb. She was like, even after everything she's gone through with Biyomon and what they've learned so far with, the Crest of Love, she couldn't feel the love. And she thought that maybe she was damaged for good. Maybe there is something wrong with her. Or maybe this is what love is. Maybe this is what love does feel like. And Matt, coming out of that angry exchange with, his friends and with Gabumon, he thought that he was lost for good. He's like, I could never be anyone's friend. I could never be anyone's friend because there's something wrong with me. No one will ever understand what it's like to feel what I'm feeling. And Tai made it to the end of the cave because he just kept going. And that's what courage can be sometimes, is that even if you don't know where to go, even though if there's a lot of uncertainty in front of you, you just have to keep going. And at the end of that, there was a Digimon waiting for him, which was Piedmon, one of the Dark Masters. And him and Agumon had to take him on by themselves. And ended up getting wiped. Even though Agumon was able to warp Digivolve to War Greymon, they got wiped. But while that was happening, what Sora discovered was that she had to let people in. And what Matt discovered was a very similar lesson, was that he had to tell people how much he appreciates them. And so Sora was like, I can be as loving, I can be the most loving person, but if I don't let people love me, then I'm never going to feel loved. So she had to let her walls down and be willing to accept, like a give and exchange. And for Matt, he had to communicate, he had to open up, and he had to actually tell people how he really felt. And so him and Sora were able to find each other, get out of the Cave of Sorrow just in time as Tai and Agumon like just beaten. They got whacked. All right. They got whacked by Dark Piedmon. And Matt expressed his sincere appreciation to Tai. And so this is what I wrote, was that Matt's Crest of Friendship activated when Matt told Tai how important his friendship with Tai truly meant to him, and that he didn't mean what he said before. Okay, he didn't mean it. And Tai felt like he let Matt down, failing in the fight with Piedmon. But because Matt truly and sincerely expressed his appreciation for the friendship that he had with Tai, it allowed Wargreymon to be revitalized and renewed, and for Gabumon to warp Digivolve to Metal Garurumon. So in this, do to your friends as your friends should do to you. So, and I'm going to say that one more time so this will click, is that do to your friend as your friend should do to you. One of the things that we get hung up on, and a lot of reasons why silent treatment is used as a weapon, or we just stop communicating, is because that there was some kind of unannounced expectation there. So I wanted to write, do to your friend as you would want your friend to do to you. But want and do are two very different things. I feel like when we say want, it changes the phrase and leaves room for interpretation. There's suddenly there's this hovering expectation, this moment where you could almost catch them in something because you didn't say it. You didn't have to say it. They should have known what you wanted in the first place. Confirmation burp. Sorry. And so this is why it's so important that when we communicate and have those hard conversations that I mentioned before, make sure that you're coming forward with authenticity and the intentions of clarity to be there so that there can actually be changed behavior. All right, we're trying to remove confusion, and we don't want people to feel like they're walking on eggshells around us. We don't want people to feel like that you're unapproachable or that you're difficult. And I believe that a lot of that happens because suddenly we're bringing up things that person wasn't aware were concerns of yours. That person wasn't aware that they overstepped boundaries because you didn't say anything about it, right? So now it's getting really confusing for them. And that's what makes you difficult. That's what makes you hard to be around. That's what makes you hard to love. Okay, but the illusion and the fear here is that somehow that's permanent when it's not. We are all capable of being loved, and we are all capable of being good friends. Just like as I said at the very beginning, and I'm going to say this a few more times throughout this episode, be your own friend first so you can be a good friend to others. Okay? You gotta know what works for you and what doesn't. You gotta know what aligns for you. All right, align, when I say that, that's not spiritual woo-woo, okay? That's not spiritual woo-woo crap. Aligned is something that we should be doing in our lives, okay? Because it is connected to consistency. And what is consistency? Well, consistency is the key to success. Okay, so if we're not learning to be better communicators, if we're not learning or healing ourselves or trying to understand what our triggers are, or, with the intention of overcoming our fear, not getting over our fear. That's a farce. You can't just get over fear, all right? You got to work on it. You got to figure out what it is. What are you really afraid of? Because if you don't know what it is, you can't get through that. It's going to be with you. And unfortunately, it's going to manifest in your life in some really nasty ways. And there'll be no one else to blame but you. There are a lot of resources out there, people. Self-help books, professionals. This isn't something that we should make our friends feel like they're responsible for. Because they're not. Your fear, your confusion, the chip on your shoulder, that's your responsibility. And as long as those things are there, chances are you'll be lashing out on the very people who love you and want the best for you. And that's not fair to them. And it doesn't make you feel good. And that's also not what friendship is supposed to be. Okay, so moving on. Again, boundaries are clarity, not punishment. Okay, we're not punishing people with boundaries. We're communicating them so we can protect the connection and recognize that friendship is growing pains and overcoming challenges together. Okay? Just as much as we learn together, we grow together. So don't let your ego tell you otherwise. Okay? Because that person on the other side of the connection, if they really truly are your friend and they're not in some weird rivalry with you that you never asked for in the first place, they want to be in your life because they think you're cool. They like you. So it's very important that we let each other know how much we appreciate them. It makes us feel good. Share the love. There's plenty to go around. Don't let jealousy and envy get in the way. All right? We can all be friends. So, how we show up for ourselves reflect how we show up for the world around us. And that is what authenticity is. Because then it's no longer a performance. It is who we are. This is why I think authenticity is so important in the workplace. All right? While also recognizing that you are at a job. So when I say authenticity, I'm talking about that you put in the work to be the best you can be, that you've developed some really good habits, you know your boundaries, you know how to be respectful, you have common sense, you're grounded, you know who you are. That's what authenticity is. What authenticity isn't is oversharing, being unprofessional, purposely being messy to get attention, putting on a performance, trying to be flashy, trying to be cool. working things into your life that don't really align with your life just to keep up with the Joneses. Okay, that's not what authenticity is. Okay, and authenticity also isn't you trying to act like you're better than everyone because you think you're the real deal. Okay, if you're really truly authentic, people will know that you're the real deal without you even having to say it. All right. So, authenticity is you being the best balanced and just wonderful person just as you are. Recognizing that nobody's perfect. Recognizing that you're a work in progress. I will tell you right now, my life right now, to be honest, it's kind of in shambles. Kind of in shambles right now. But I'm not going to take that. I'm not going to lash out. I'm not going to hurt people because I'm struggling. I'm well aware that I'm in this position because of what I did or what I said or who I was. And with courage and with love and with the knowledge that I have surrounding friendship, there's a lot that I can do to get back on the horse, to brave whatever's next. Because I know that all the storms that I weathered before, I'm still standing. I'm still here. I'm still showing up. And what I'm doing is aligned with me. The work that I'm doing is aligned with me. But it's going to require me to now put in more effort, more work, and overcoming my fear surrounding success, while also recognizing the success I've already achieved in my work. So when Matt was able to realize his strength alone at times was not enough and recognize the impact and genuine appreciation of his friends, Mimi, Joe, Sora, Ty, Izzy, TK, Kari, and even his own partner Digimon, Gabumon, that's when he was able to activate his Crest of Friendship. Because now he figured out a really important lesson. Working together requires us to coexist with our differences, not to control or change us to all be the same. So yeah, his friends may not ever go through what he went through in his life. His friends may never be able to fully understand his pain and his sorrow and what his home life was like and his childhood was like. They may never know that. And that's not what he wanted. He didn't want them to feel his pain. He didn't want them to experience his fear. He didn't want to be angry. He was just hurt. But he figured it out that that's not their burden or their responsibility to resolve for him. He had to do it on his own. He had to be his own friend before he could really truly be their friend. So, to kind of wrap this up is that in friendship, we challenge ourselves and each other to grow and achieve a better version of ourselves that we can't do alone. And that, my friends, is the true meaning of friendship. Thank you so much for sitting with me for today's coffee break as we talked about the Crest of Friendship. The best thing you can do to help me right now for free is rate my podcast. You can rate my podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify or wherever you listen to my podcast. But that's something that will actually really, really help me at this time, and it's free to do. In the meantime, I would love to hear your thoughts surrounding friendship, and you can share those thoughts at theoscoffeebreakpodcast@gmail.com. At the end of the day, folks, being human is messy, and friendships get messy, but that doesn't mean that we can't try again, just as long as we are being honest and our intentions are to heal so we can grow stronger together. Until the next episode, remember, you are always welcome at our coffee table. Remember to be kind. Remember that if you are gentle with the world will be gentle right back to you. Can't wait to see you in the next episode. See you then.